do business and industry and certifications. A lot of times they don't get any state funding for those at all. And in 24, they got $14,300,000. I also talked to some other stakeholders. It's my understanding that the Washburn Municipal Operating Grant was taken out, and that none of the other operating grants for the other four-year colleges across the state had a cut in that. And then the third thing, you know, we've had a lot of talk about K-State, KSU 105. So with that, I have a substitute motion.
All right. Second. Oh, there's a second on the substitute motion. I was going to have you explain your substitute motion, but
Yeah.
But
You want me to go
Francis,
through?
go in more detail.
Yeah. So my substitute motion would be to delete item number 2. Delete. Can you help me with this for a second, Mr. Chairman? Delete item number 7. And then on item, what item number is that? On the back page where we're talking about the KSU 105, rather than a $1 million decrease, it would be a $500,000 decrease. And then also to get some accountability on KSU 105, staff is handing out a proviso right now. I would like that attached to my substitute motion that would say what's on this handout. Shall provide technical assistance to partners in the state through the K-State Extension Network and report to the legislature enumerating those specific programs and assistance which contributed to job creation and retention. K-State 105 would be responsible for developing an easily accessible and visible one-stop resource center for entrepreneurs and small businesses, which will act as a conduit for local and state resources throughout our 105 counties. Shall identify priority industry-specific goals to reduce workforce gaps in the Kansas economy related to a growing need for skilled workforce and target business startups and development that fits those needs through the implementation of small business loans. And then 4, K-State 105 shall provide evidence that the outlined goals have been met along with a number of jobs, including job classifications, are created and retained through direct assistance from K-State 105. And with that, I would stand for questions.
All right, committee, are there any questions in regards to the substitute motion? Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So under the current motion, the higher education adjustment reduction is $22 million. What is the total under the substitute motion?
Representative Francis.
See, 3.575 million plus, I need to get my calculator out there. I could phone a friend. But let's see, 3.575 plus 1.65
Make sure to subtract the education.
plus 500,000, or, yeah, let's see. $500,000. Yeah, that went backwards.
Yeah, all of it is.
0.5
It's all
plus.
backwards, Shannon.
Yeah, it is going backwards. It's hard for me to work my phone. Yeah. Let me work it one more time. Hey, staff, can you help me on what the 22 million would go to?
I think it's approximately 5.5 million less than the original motion.
So it'd be around 17 million.
Right, correct.
16.8.
Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can appreciate these items going back in, but overall, I still don't want to support a $17 million cut here. So if this substitute motion passes, then that is the level of cuts that would be administered to higher ed. So unfortunately, I won't be able to support it. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the substitute motion? Seeing none, Representative Francis, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the substitute motion. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Substitute motion passes. All right, discussion, further discussion. Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a list here of my, just a second. Where did my list go? There it is. All right, if we go to page 17, I believe it is. Actually, it's page 19. So, I'm looking under the Wichita State University Aviation Research, and we've made quite a few cuts, haircuts, eliminating some programs. Yeah, we still have this $5 million SGF to aviation research. That is, yeah, it's going through NIAR, but it's basically going to one company. So I've kind of been trying to find out, there are multiple occurrences in our budget that have been put in over the last probably 20 years of us giving out different amounts to several different aviation companies. I'm not going to try to get into that, but I am going to look into that more later. But right now, I'm going to make a motion that we, under the aviation research, that we trim that down to $4.5 million for 26.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Howe. You don't second? Well, I need a second first before we have discussion. Second by Representative Sutton. Discussion on the motion, Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's no mention of Wichita State University Aviation in my budget adjustment. And so are you proposing to add that, try to amend, I guess, the adjustment package motion?
Right. This is under Wichita State University, and it would, I mean, it's separate from your motion. So this is just under the number 1 on page 19, just trimming that to $4.5 million.
Representative Howe.
I guess, kind of point of order, the motion doesn't currently have anything to do with aviation for Wichita State University. So I think it's out of order, perhaps. Maybe it has to be a separate motion.
We're past that.
The substitute motion passed. I guess, what are you claiming is out of order?
Okay, so you're wanting to come back to, in addition to the adjustment that was just made and modify Wichita State University, a separate, okay.
Correct. This is a separate motion.
Okay.
Any further discussion in regards to the motion? Representative Rogers.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, $500,000, I mean, what does that do? What doesn't that do? Is that just a normal appropriation, just in the overall scheme of just cutting, or what? Did you talk to anybody about what that is, or is it always just pass through and there's no accountability? I mean, just explain your reasoning.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I mean, I don't have a problem with what they're doing. They're doing some great things with some of this research money. It's going to Textron Aviation. They're doing great things. My issue is that we we're giving 4.5 million basically to a multi-billion-dollar company. And we have, in the past several days, we have trimmed back quite a bit of money from a lot of different areas that, from social services, from several different things. I just think that this particular item can take a $500,000 haircut, and they can still continue to do their research, but they're contributing to what we're trying to do here, and that is to bring this budget under control.
Representative Rogers. Representative Helgerson.
That was my question.
Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the adjustment is specifically for Textron, because in the budget, there's $5 million for Spirit, then there's a $5 million open source pool in which people can apply for some of those monies. Could be an aircraft supplier or someone that's wanting to do something unique, maybe a smaller business in Kansas in the aviation sphere. So is this motion just specifically to Textron?
Representative Hoffman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that was what I was alluding to when I said that we've had quite a few different incentives or packages like this over the years. I had research look, and there is out there a tax credit for Spirit. For me to try to cut that would be, just, I couldn't do it in a motion like this. And so this is the only thing that I could find that, I'd heard that there was a general aviation tax credit, a general aviation's money. We couldn't find that. So this is the only thing that I could find that is going just to, this research. So if I could have found it for Spirit and all those others, I probably would have given them a haircut too, but that wasn't something that we could find in the budget, and so this is what I came up with.
Representative Howell.
So this $5 million was in the budget last year, and I respect the desire to, I guess, give a haircut, but Textron Aviation does employ 11,000 people in Kansas. It's one of the largest private sector employers in our state. I haven't talked to them about what a $500,000 adjustment would do. But I guess overall, I'm a little frustrated with this whole process because, on one hand, we're told that we need to hold the line on spending, but yet we're allowing things that haven't even come through a budget committee, and we're approving basically what is called an earmark for many other things. And this was vetted thoroughly in higher ed budget. It's been vetted by other people. I just don't know what the end game is. We trim on some things, but on others we give a free pass too. So I'm really frustrated, and I'll oppose the motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Representative Hoffman, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I don't have any problem with the research that they're doing. I saw some of it. They're doing some great things. I just think that if we are going to continue to do kind of what we've been doing the last several days in trimming some of these budgets, I would have, I hated to take out quite a bit of money out of some of the social services programs that I think probably would have helped us in the long run. I think that $500,000 is not going to probably impact them that much, and they can share with everybody else in helping us get our budget under control. So with that, I move my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple of items that cost nothing. I want to make sure that everyone understands that. So on page 9, number 5, the other day when we were talking about brain injury rates, waiver rates, there's a mistake in there mentioning hours. These are by the unit, and the 4 units every 15 minutes, so there's 4 units an hour. So that just needs to be changed to $20 per unit, which is 15 minutes, is all. That's that cleanup there. And I would make that as motion.
Okay, that's your motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Bueller. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Representative Carpenter, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one more. I'm not sure if it's ready yet, but the revisers are, it's in the budget is the newborn screening bill, which we test 36 different screenings for newborns for different diseases and stuff like that. It's got a $5 million figure in there. It's been in there for 3 or 4 years. They've added 2 new tests, and I just need to modify that proviso in the budget to reflect the 2 new tests that they have this year. And the revisor's office, Jenna, was working on that for me when I came down here. So anyway, that's my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Hoffman. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Representative Carpenter, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Representative Carpenter, done? Done. Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few things. I would like let's see, on page 5 of the yellow sheet, we're looking at commerce. Number 1, where we have 2.5 million, I would like to delete 500,000 from that, leaving it at 2 million SGF for fiscal year 2026 for Level Up Kansas.
All right, committee, you heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Getz. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Mosier, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes appear to have it, as weak as that might have been, but motion passes. Representative Mosier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, on page 5, number 4, junior achievement, they're currently in for $380,000. I talked to the president and CEO yesterday, and I'd like to delete $80,000 from their budget. They're good with that.
Okay, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in, or is there a second? Second by Representative Ballard. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Representative Mosier, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
All right, committee, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, on page 5, down at number, where were we? Build Up Kansas, number 8. It currently has $2 million in its budget, and we were going to add $625,000 EDIF. I would move to strike that.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Wassinger. Discussion on the motion. Representative Tarwater.
What are we, that went over my head there. What are we striking?
I believe it's under, on the Department of Commerce, Build Up Kansas, item number 8 on page 5, the $625,000 add of EDIF.
Okay, so you're just deleting the ad, not the whole program? Oh,
Right,
okay.
that's, yeah, I said leaving the 2 million in.
All right, that's the part I missed.
Yep.
Thanks, thank you very much.
Further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Representative Mosier, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last thing, Wildlife and Parks came to me. We took out of the budget in committee, they were asking for almost 700,000 of operating expenses and park expenditures. You won't find it on the cream-colored sheet anywhere. They came to me and said that they need funds to help with utilities, IT costs, their operation expenses, administrative costs. And if we don't put back a little EDIF, they'll have to use park fee funds, which to cover these expenses, and that's going to take away from their basic park maintenance and repairs and other small building projects. They shared with me that a 2021 study showed that Kansas state parks provide over $287 million in economic impact for the state of Kansas. They're an economic driver for small communities all across Kansas. And so with that, in lieu of the 700,000, I would ask to put 150,000 back into their operating expenditure file and 200,000 into their parks operations. So 350,000 instead of getting, yeah.
All right, committee, you've heard
Yes.
the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Carpenter. Discussion on the motion. So it's total of 400,000 going back into their
350,000,
350,000 total.
yes. 150 to the operating
then-
expenditures, and then 200,000,
Okay.
they're both EDIF, 200,000 for the park operating expenditures.
All right, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, Representative Mosier, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Representative Mosier?
I am finished. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple, three to be exact. I'm going to start with the judicial branch. I move to add 3 million, including 2.1 SGF to restore salaries and wages for non-judges for FY26 to restore funds inadvertently removed from the interim budget committee's motion concerning salary. This includes the increased share of health insurance and capers, as well as performance-based step increases for existing employees of the structured merit increase process for non-judicial staff.
All right, so you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Estes. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Representative Wassinger may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to add 1.1 million to pay for SB 291's requirements for IT and security enhancement, including a long list, a laundry list, support, IT support and hardware, software and training, IT development, and many other things involved with trying to get, for one, get to the NIST standards that they have to. So they need the different software and training for that.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Hoffman. Discussion on the motion, Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hardware, no question. I have no problem with that. I am curious about what training is required, however.
Okay.
Representative Wassinger.
For example, in the monitoring tools, which was a $20,000 piece in that, it helps them to spot any unusual activity early so they can act and start communication immediately. By investing in this, they'll reduce unexpected disruptions and provide a smoother, more reliable experience. So staff needs to be trained on that and how to look for all of those, as well as it's a strict requirement of the NIST standards 2.0, which is part of 291. That's one of them.
Representative Hoffman, or Sutton?
How
Apologize.
many people do that? That makes me a little uncomfortable. It's a compliment, I'll grant you, but for me, it's a compliment. Representative Hoffman may not feel that way. The training aspect, are you saying that the training is an NIS standard? Is that what I'm hearing?
Representative Wassinger?
The same thing.
In which case, I'd ask, who issued those standards?
That was from SB 291, the cybersecurity bill.
Okay,
Representative Sutton?
thank you, Mr. Chair. We implemented training standards for our software packages in 291? I don't recall that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The NIST standards is a whole different level of performance for all of our IT that they need to be. It's not something we've done before. This is taking it up a great deal in security. And we know that Judiciary needed the help with security, so this.
Representative Hoffman?
So I think probably it's more of a title than actual, most of this is for software and training. So it's mostly software, and then I'm sure there's a little bit of training in there just to how to use the software. So I'm sure most of it's going for the software itself.
Representative Sutton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let the record reflect there were a lot of hand quotations made on that statement.
Representative Mosier?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what agency, I didn't catch what agency this is going into?
Representative Wassinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Judiciary.
Representative Mosier?
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Wassinger, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Wassinger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to amend the Attorney General's budget in FY 2025 in the IT support funding to remove one full-time support staff in the amount of $30,000 and remove one full-time support, FTE support staff in 26 in the amount of approximately $100,000. And I need staff to figure out the exact amounts on both of those.
Okay. You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Francis. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Representative Wassinger, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. That's your three. Is that correct? All right. Representative Hoffman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, I failed to bring one more thing. This is, there's no money involved. It's simply language. In the water cost share line item, there is a language that's been, I'm not sure when it was added, but it says provide further that expenditures from this account for contractual technical expertise and or non-salary administration expenditures for the Division of Conservation of the Kansas Department of Agriculture shall not exceed the amount equal to 6% of the budget amount for the fiscal year 26 for the water resource cost share account. This particular language is only in this water cost share account, and it's really kind of causing the Department of Agriculture some issues. And so I would just move that we just remove that language and allow them to use all the accounts to help with the technical support.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Sutton. Discussion on the motion. All right, seeing none, Representative Hoffman, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a request for $1 million for the O'Connell Children's Shelter, and it is located in Southeast Lawrence. The O'Connell shelter serves a broad range of families in the child welfare system. And one of the areas of recent need is a crossover youth, and that's both the juvenile justice system and child welfare. These are typically the hardest to place kids and the ones that often are reported in the media hardest hit by social workers or foster care. They're requesting the $1 million to help with bringing additional beds to serve this population and also help with staff retention and training. And the funding will not be from SGF, but from the Juvenile Justice Savings Fund. And the Juvenile Justice Saving Funds sort of fits what it is that they want to do. For a little background, the O'Connell Shelter is nearing its 50 years of service to Kansas children and families. And this land that they're on, which used to be a ranch, is 120 acres, and it was donated. And part of it was to keep young people who needed assistance out of jail so that they would grow up to be productive citizens. There are 5 homes, 3 on the ranch property now and 2 in the city. And they have the capacity to serve 60 youth at any one time. I would also say that they help students struggling to remain in school, provide services to juveniles, and they offer service free to the qualifying families, including generous support. And there's some backers are the Department of Corrections, Department of Children and Family, and county commissioners in the Douglas County area. This is a program that's longstanding, and part of it is there's to keep them out of the foster care system. And at that point, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
First, I need a second. Is there a second? Second by Representative Bueller. Discussion on the motion. Representative Helgerson.
26.
Which subcommittee dealt with this?
Representative Ballard.
It did not come out of a subcommittee. It came to me via.
It wasn't a request by the governor's office or the agencies, or it just came to you directly?
Representative Ballard.
Well, it came to me and others, and I'm carrying it.
Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It came to me also, and this is an excellent program. If there's one that you want to invest in, it is this program. I mean, it's that good. It definitely helps kids that we have in this state. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I actually do support this because it is not SGF funding. It does allow for the kids that are most difficult to help. It is for those kids that are in the welfare, that crossover group. And so I would rather the money go to work than stay in the fund in this particular case. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Bueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification. We saw so many organizations and agencies. I do believe they either testified in committee or we did at least have some awareness of this group through the Social Services Budget Committee. But my total recall is going blank right now.
It might have been written.
Thank you,
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so it was my committee that lapsed some of this funding, and the reason was because it wasn't being spent properly. This sounds like a great use of $1 million of the dollars, so I support the motion.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Ballard, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can assure you that this program has been around a long time. It's doing well, and they have sent us things before, just talking about the program as well. So with that, I move my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. I have 2 things dealing with water. The first one, I believe, Jill, we have this. Let's do the language first. This one. And then if somebody passed these out too, this will be the second one. So that'll be the cuts. So yeah, if you pass this one out.
Do you just make, we want to do both in just one motion?
If you want, well, we can if you want.
You're the maker of the motion. I'm just asking if you wanted to do that or split them out.
I would like to split them up, right quick.
Okay.
Yes. No, just follow my lead.
Do you want to describe your motion, then go
Yes.
for a second?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is, as we were going through some of the things we were doing a couple of days ago, is we have, in trying to put these into buckets, we are limiting the ability of agencies to, they're still going through our defined programs that we want to, but basically it undoes this bucket system that have been come up with and restore that traditional state water funding lines within the Department of Agriculture, Department of Health and Environment, and the Water Office. And so some of these, since they do go between different agencies, this also restores the Water Office's authority to transfer between the state water plan lines and other agencies. That language was deleted. We did it with one, but really that means something like that AEM, that aquifer monitoring that works with the Kansas Geological Survey at KU, they couldn't be able to do that. When we took that language out, we weren't maybe thought the thing through what we kind of wanted to do. So that in a sense also, it would mean the state water plan, the transfer between the state water plan and KDA, it required approval by the State Finance Council. This would allow KDA to transfer between those lines, those programs that we outlined, if you remember, a few days ago with approval from the Director of the Budget, and then notice to the chairs of the House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means Committee. So this will put KDA, KDHE, and the KWO all will have the same authority to move the funds for the water that where we at. That's what all this is.
All right, committee, is there a second? Second by Representative Mosier. Discussion on the motion. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is there a change in this, or is this exactly the same?
It's just bringing it all back. And so the reason kind of why this is we're in the process of trying to pass another commission for water that the legislature takes control. The legislature will be in control of water policy and water funding moving forward. And so in order to do this is going to be the simplest way instead of trying to do a lot of extra and some of these programs we want to be able to be funded.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the balances are the same?
Representative Rogers.
Yes.
You're going to get that. All right. Thank you.
For now.
Wait till the second motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Any moves or transfers are approved by the State Finance Council?
I believe that's correct. No, they wouldn't be. Now this would mean they would have approval from the Director of the Budget rather than going for the State Finance Council, as the other two did. KDA did not.
All right.
Okay.
Jill was just wanting to make sure that what the language was. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Rogers, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Rogers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You will have in front of you the water enhancements that were approved so few hours ago. But, yeah, you should. Oh, I'm sorry. Thought they were already out. It was.
That's why you're doing both at the same time. Trade.
No. Yes, okay. Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Representative Rogers.
Yes, sir. Thank you. What this is, and as we worked earlier on the funding, this has been a bipartisan and almost bicameral effort to try to do what's best, but also wanting to be a team player, as many have. And we are giving some haircuts and some buzz cuts to some of these, and knowing that we move forward, this is what proposing to come up with. And so you can see this, and I will go through these fairly quickly. The water resource cost share of local district aid and grant portion has been cut entirely. That was $3 million. So we've cut $3 million there. The Conservation District aid and grants for local staff and operational aid is one that's very popular by this legislature, so we have kept that in there, adding another 1.75 million in for that. It was one that was done last year, and I think for whatever reason ran out of time in one of the houses. The Irrigation Conservation and Partnership is one that is matched a 5-year, $25 million federal grant. The Feedlot and Stockwater System Upgrade Program is cut by $250,000 from what the enhancement was, so that's cut to $250 from what the original was. This will address one less facility now with that cut. Dam construction and rehabilitation is important to many, and so that stayed at, for high-risk dams. This also allows inspection of an additional 150 dams. And the bottom one on that first page, it is a sorghum research match. It says new. It kind of is, but it really isn't. Those of you that were here 10 years ago, this is the CSIP program at Kansas State University, the Center for Sorghum Improvement. And what this is, it is a 4-to-1 match. Kansas puts in $1 million. It's a one-time $1 million for 10 years. So you break that down to $100,000 or whatever. But that 4-to-1 match is coming from the Kansas Grain Sorghum Checkoff and the National Sorghum Checkoff programs. Kansas, you know, is the leading sorghum state. This research is a tremendous asset to Kansas State University. And in fact, with this $1 million investment that the state makes, it is more than a 4-to-1 match. Some years as much as a 9-to-1 match. For every dollar we invest, we get 9 more in research. So that is in there for that one-time $1 million. Also, the RAPS program is still there at $1.5 million. The rural and private groundwater support is where it was. Another enhancement of $500,000. Contaminated remediation is one that can work on 1 or 2 additional contamination sites. A new funding was the water planning and project management development there. We cut that by $2.5 million from what the original was. And the infrastructure project and technical assistance program cut by $1.5 million. And again, that's the one that had over $220 million in requests for technical assistance with water infrastructure funding in our small communities, those less than 2,000. That account still has $18,500,000. We did have a new in-lake sediment management initiative for a hydrosuction pilot program at John Redmond. That has been scrapped. That is saving you, Kansas taxpayers, $3 million for. Are we hearing laughs? I don't know. Is my hearing aid? Anyway, $3 million cut there. That program is put on hold. Independent program accountability and evaluation, that is $610,000. That is, again, going through the reviews of existing programs. We've had that conversation, but I think what you see now is a renewed commitment in the legislature taking over water and how this goes, and then the aquifer monitoring and modeling. The other day, yesterday, I believe, we put the money in for what was reallocated. This is for the $800,000 that will continue the AEM mapping to have a new technology, better understanding of where the Ogallala aquifer is when it comes to how much is left in certain areas, rather than a blanket statement that it went down 1.5 inches throughout, which it did not. So with that, $11 million. We're now at, we're just about $10 million in cuts.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Getz. Discussion on the motion. Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe the spreadsheet isn't doing justice to the work that you've done here. I'm seeing $11 million in increases. Where are the $10 million in cuts?
Representative Rogers.
Well, what it is from what was passed out of the different committees, primarily in the Ag and Natural Resources budget. So that was what was agreed to. It came out of budget that we proposed and was passed earlier in this appropriations process. So it was approved at that $21 million mark, and from there, then cutting that was previously appropriated.
Representative Sutton.
All right, and I not that I'm disbelieving you, I just love to hear from the Ag chairman that this is indeed a cut, because that's not what this is showing, and I'd love to actually see that in action.
Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You might remember when I presented Kansas Department of Agriculture, Kansas Water Office, and Kansas Department of Environment, and I prefaced it all with, we've cut this, and this is where we are, and those three budgets with water totaled 22.5. And so now, these are further cuts, and the total water budget now is 11.2. So where you see the lines drawn through on this enhancement page, these are cuts from our original ask of 22.5 million.
Representative Sutton.
Very good. That satisfies my question. Thank you very much.
Representative Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, the very first one, is that are you completely getting rid of the cost share program at the Division of Conservation?
Representative Rogers.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Representative, it is not being funded. No, it's not necessarily eliminated, it's not being funded.
Representative Hoffman.
Okay, so that is about the only funding that goes. Is there more cost share that's somewhere else?
Representative Rogers.
I thought you were going to say that goes back to the counties, but no, number two, it goes back to the counties. The cost share is the RAPS program, I believe, is cost share, and I'm going to stretch here. I think there are other cost share programs. Let me see on my phone. Why is it going off? What would that possibly be? Do I have, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. The base still stays, Representative. That was an addition. Yes.
All right,
I
okay, the
apologize.
base still stays. Okay.
Cost share is still there.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion?
Trying to help.
Seeing none, Representative Rogers, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Representative Williams.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, Dylan, do you have a running total of how we're doing? I'm somewhere around 94 million, and that's just in cuts. I'm not sure if that's even close.
Dylan.
So before any adjustments were made in here this afternoon, in FY25 you added 162.5, and in FY26 you added 219.8.
Say it again, please. Savings. So that's.
So that's the total adjustment from House Bill 2007. So we sum all those together. I can do some math real quick if you want to know how much from the beginning of today.
No, I don't think that's necessary. But as I'm going through just the cuts that we've done, we've added 38 million for a pay plan. These are just rough estimates. We've reduced 17 million. We've reduced 36 million, 11 million, 39 million, and then we keep going forward. So we're close to 100 million. That means we're close potentially, and I could be completely wrong, to 600 million in the red, because when we started this process, we were 700 million in the red. So setting that aside, because they can give us those numbers, I know we're all working really hard to get to the place where we have a little bit more balance moving forward, and it's super, super tough, and I appreciate everybody's efforts. And so I'd like to go back to the education budget. On the education K through 12, We did add 30 million. We added 82.5 million last year. 2.5 million was actually from the ESSER, I believe, or the ARPA, actually ARPA funds. And so because of the increases of $290 per person for 2026, it amounted to over a 5% increase for K through 12, including those that are special education. And so with that, I would move that we strike the increase from 2026.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Sutton. Discussion on the motion. So yours is just 2026, not 2027, where there's also $30 million?
Yes, it would actually have to be both.
So both years. Is that fine with the second? Okay. Discussion on the motion.
Could you repeat that again? I didn't get where you got it from.
Representative Williams.
And actually, I should have tagged it in my pages, if somebody knows the page number. Department of Education, it's actually on page 15. Page 15, so we're looking at 2026, striking $30 million for 2026, and then we're going over to the next page for 2027, and striking the $30 million in those, only for the reason that K through 12 has received over a 5% increase, and that's just one bucket of money.
Any further discussion? Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I got a question. So we were trying to get to a point where we were going to be at 92%, correct, for funding special education. By eliminating this $30 million, what does that do to that idea?
Representative Williams.
So the 92% that is set in statute is not constitutional funding, but it is a number that we placed in statute, yes. And so last year, we did increase that as well as make some other adjustments. So we have maintained our constitutional funding and have done so since the Gannon decision was resolved.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're no longer trying to hit the goal of 92%. Is that what we're saying?
Representative Williams.
I'm using Representative Tarwater's words. Those are your words, not mine.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a huge mistake.
Representative Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here to represent my district and the people of Salina. Special education funding is something I ran on, and I'm not going to abandon my commitment to fully fund special education for the kids and students that need the services. State law says we have to provide 92% funding of excess cost, and we're falling short of what state law is. And so I think I just have to oppose this because I'm here to represent my district, and my district is telling me that this would be not only the wrong move, but a step backwards in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Representative Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a hard one for me. Most of you know this hits not just in my district, but it hits my household. My son was born with Down syndrome, so this is both a business of the state and all of the kids that are in this group that get served by our amazing special ed collective of educators. And so it is personal, and I appreciate the cuts and what we're trying to do. So the future a chance, and not just drive the bus into a terrible direction forever. And to answer your question on what percentage, if we add 0, which the current motion on the floor, we would stay at 601 million in special education. And I would, last year, an $80 million increase that will remain. That is maintenance of effort. So it's not just an increase last year, it's an increase forever. And in that, adding So this year, I would make a substitute motion that we add $10 million into from SGF into the special ed funding. And that would bring us to, in 2026, our percentage still working towards a 92, but it brings us to 73% of, and I would remind us, the federal government started saying they would do 40%. They're at 13%. The state is really the one who's still doing the most in percentages. The locals are having to carry a lot of weight. The state's having to carry even more weight in this. And so, though I would love to be able to spend the 30 million, I make my substitute motion of 10 million.
All right, committee, you've heard the substitute motion, seconded by Representative Turk. Discussion on the substitute motion. Representative Ballard.
Thank you. Well, to take out 30 million was giving me heartburn, but I would go with the substitute motion, though I think it really should be more. Having served 8 years on the Lawrence School Board, we are mandated to provide the special education. All the IEPs, the individual things that we have to do, we don't have a choice. So it comes out of your operation expenses if you don't have it, and that's less that you can spend on some of the other things. The other thing about our special ed program, we're one of the few programs in the United States that also have the gifted program under special education. And most people think it's a disability only, but we have our gifted program there. And that's meeting challenges for the people that have the disabilities and how we can have them live to their potential, and the gifted program to keep them challenged so that we develop so many things on them. So, I mean, this was a no-brainer for me. I would support that because it fits. We have a unique gifted program. If we don't fund it, it has to come from somewhere, and it comes from their operation expenses, and then they don't have money for other things. So I would support that, and I'm glad you made that motion.
Representative Wassinger.
I think maybe staff can help me with that, but we've done the 5% for the last 10 years extra to the education fund. Is that correct?
Representative Getz. Or Williams?
As far as numbers for the last 2 years, I could be accurate. It was 270 million in 24 and 233 million. If you're talking about CPIU increase to the districts, so over $500 million in just the last 2 years of CPIU increases. And then if you add kind of how I'm also got heartburn, but thinking about last year, 80 million staying in and 10 million going, that's 45 million split out over 2 years, the special education. That's not a terrible, thing. It's not maybe everything that we should do, but it's maybe everything we can do. And so if that answers your question, that's the last 2 years.
Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Chair Gutz. I just, are they not required to also put some of that additional funds into special education, or do they just not do it? I mean, it just seems like that's a lot of money. And I don't begrudge giving our kids money, but it seems like there should be better distribution of all these extra funds. I'm not seeing test scores go up, so I'm not understanding how this works. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the finance formula can be a little bit heavy, but what happens is when you have your base aid, you times your 11 weightings, that total amount goes to the districts. They can take up to 33% in local option budget, which is their supplemental. So one of those weightings is the special education, and therefore there's a percentage of that is absolutely attributable to the special education students. Last year in House Substitute for Senate Bill 387, we required those monies that are attributable to special education to go into the special education fund for the first time ever and to be used for special education fund. That's approximately $220 million, and my numbers could be a little fuzzy because it's been a year. But that is money that we do not get credit for at all, even the equalization money. We do not get any credit for that money. But that is $220 million in addition that is going to special education. Representative Getz already made mention of the fact that we're about $300 million short annually from the federal government. So we actually are stepping up and doing our piece. I would also mention that I think a few of us in this committee have received emails from individuals that are talking about excess costs, and that's not the law. And I would remind everyone, we actually do write the law, and we did write the law last year, and we did specify in the law that is current that excess cost is to be determined at the district level as well. The only thing I changed in the proviso, the only thing was that last final step for excess cost, which is the percentage excess cost. That's it. Everything else is current law. And so I just wanted to clarify that for anybody that's confused about any provisos that I added before. And final comment, thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence. I applaud our chair of K-12. I think $10 million is a really great compromise, and I can support that.
Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the substitute motion to at least move it in a positive direction. However, the school district I represent has to divert $5 million from the general ed population to special ed. So we're taking $5 million in funding that should go to general education, shifting it to special education because we're not providing enough funding. We're not fully funding special education in the state of Kansas. And so I think that's important for us to understand that, because, I mean, 10 million is a little bit more, yes. But when my district is moving 5 million from general ed to special ed, it's really just a small drop in the bucket. And so I just can't sit here and be silent. I think we can do better than 10 million. And, you know, I suppose we'll have a rigorous debate on the House floor over this budget. And I'm prepared to be part of that. I want to be part of the solution to our fiscal affairs, but I just feel like this isn't the right place to trim. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We started this conversation saying we'd saved almost $100 million today. And then we're going to backtrack on a commitment that we started last year of a 4-year or a 5-year plan. The 5-year plan was $72 million per year. The 4-year plan was $82 million over 4 years. Our committee, my chairman's committee, whittled that down to $30 million. I personally didn't feel like that kept our commitment that we had made. And it is the law. 92% of excess cost is Kansas law. We've had this debate before. If you want to change the law, let's talk about changing the law. But for today's discussion, currently 92% is the law. The proviso that was brought up, I'm glad it was brought up, and I hope we continue that discussion, because if the only thing that was changed was adding a percentage, then that can also follow the law that we established last year. The feds, they put the CYA in their law. It says up to 40%. The federal government is not contradicting their own laws with regards to special education reimbursement cost. I have 23 million being siphoned from the general fund to cover excess cost that the state should be responsible for. So to echo the comments that were made before, the 10 million seems like the 30 million seemed like a drop in the hat, let alone the 10 million. With last year's investment and commitment, we sit at 75.4%. With the 30 million added, we would have moved up to 75.6% in reimbursement. And that's at least holding the line. It's given the district something that they can predict and budget off of. If we go down to 10 million, we fall down to 73.2%. We're going backwards. We have not, as a state, funded special education reimbursement since 2011. We've been shortchanging them for a while. We discussed the increase in monies. That was agreed to when we settled the Gannon decision. That's according to CPIU. That's not, oh, here, have more money. It's that's what we, as a state, determined that education costs, and we were going to fund it. That's not to cover excess costs. There are two separate formulas. One is pupil-based and one is teacher-based. So while we talk about the increase, keep in mind that's already spoken for. That's not going to special education reimbursement. The LOB is not state reimbursement. That's actually local money. I'm a little torn on this because if 10 million's all we're going to get out of this committee, out of this legislature, then that's great. But honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing this fail, and I'd make a substitute motion to go ahead with the 72 million and that we save today to keep our commitment for a 4-year plan to fully fund special education in the coming years.
Any further discussion on the substitute motion? Representative Williams.
Apologies, Mr. Chair. I just want to note that for the 5 years prior, we've been adding $7.5 million. The first year for Gannon, it was 42.5, and the agreement was to add 7.5 million every year thereafter, which we did. We fully, complied with that, and then this is 10 million, so it is still an increase, and we are still moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Getz, you may close on the substitute motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the vigorous discussion. I know we all care about this, and I move my motion.
All right, committee, you heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. Division has been called. All of those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. All right. 18-2. Motion passes. Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to take money from the Attracting Professional Sports Team to Kansas Fund and direct it to special education for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Hoy. Discussion on the motion. Representative Tarwater.
I'm just going to say this is a bad idea. We're currently in negotiations and very close to bringing at least one team over, maybe two, and that's what this fund was for. This would be devastating to the state if we didn't follow through with that, and we would look like jackasses.
Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could ask KLRD staff if they could provide a number of what's currently in the fund and what's projected.
All right, they will have that in a little bit. While waiting for that, isn't there any discussion? Representative Getz.
Just want to ask a question of the maker of the motion. How much are you wanting to use from it? I know we don't know the number yet, but what is your ask? I know which fund you're asking at it, but I didn't hear the number.
Representative Howe.
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to get the number. I know it was provided to me back on the Special Committee on Legislative Budget, but I can't remember offhand. But it would be, my motion would be for the entire balance.
Representative Getz. Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once upon a time, as General Government Budget Chair, I was dealing with the lottery vending machines and got a motion from Wichita saying that we needed take the proceeds from our lottery vending machines for our, mental health task force of some sort, and irritated me to no ends. It's sloppy accounting, sloppy bookkeeping, sloppy appropriations. While I'm not opposed to your funding recipient yanking it out of someone else's budget without any due process is irresponsible, and I have to oppose that 100%. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a balance number yet, Dylan? Dylan.
Mr. Chairman, you're looking at about $12.2 million in '25 and $31.2 million in FY '26.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Representative Howell, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While this may seem like a hastily made motion, it's something I've thought about for a little while. My commitment is to the children and to the students of my district. And just as my motion is being made in somewhat a hastily manner, I believe the sports fund was also created in a somewhat hastily manner, if I remember correctly. So I would just, I appreciate the committee's willingness to entertain my motion, and I will close and ask for your support.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? No. The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. Motion fails. We're back on the budget bill. Any further discussion? Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a proviso that I'm going to have handed out.
All right.
Sorry. Yes. Even offering that amendment sends us the wrong signal. All right, committee, Mr. Chairman, if I can explain.
You may.
All right, so the first part of my motion is going to be on page 16 of 25, number 7, safe and secure school language that was added. I want to delete that and lapse the funds for the safe and secure schools for this year. And then offer this proviso, which in a sense is the same thing, but it's a little bit more money. It's real-time monitoring and detection of firearms before an incident occurs. Safe and secure firearm detection program. Instead of the $5 million that was in the safe and secure program that required a 50-50 match, this is a $7 million ad for 25 and 26. And a $6 million ad for 27, which would be sufficient funds to allow every school to participate over the next 3 years in a program that will detect firearms before they're used. And I'll stand for questions for now and then give more details as we go.
First, we need a second on the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Turk. Now discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Representative Tarwater. Representative Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry. So is this inside the education budget? There's $5 million for safe and secures. Is this in addition to that? Is this something different? Sorry, I was catching up.
Representative Tarwater.
Yeah, so I am lapsing that fund and substituting this underneath the Attorney General's office, not requiring a 50-50 match like the Safe and Secure Fund does. So this would fund it all.
Representative Getz. Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So was there a cost to any of the schools or any of the, on top of just any cost?
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you. Not that I'm aware of. Currently, under the Safe and Secure Act, the funds that go in there each year, the schools have to match them 50/50. And we felt that this type of a program is important enough that we should fund it for them.
Representative Amix.
Okay, so this takes care of a lot of the discussion that we had the other day when this thing came up, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this then go into an RFP for the software that we're doing?
Representative Tarwater.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the question. I did want to clarify that this is for an RFP and any company can compete for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to call attention to this. This is the way that process is supposed to work. We have a company that's looking to become involved in the state. However, we're not automatically awarding the contract. We're allotting the funding. We're going through an RFP process, and we're finding out who is the best provider for this service. This is the way the process is supposed to work, and I 100% support this endeavor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This goes beyond school. I mean, I'm looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, line 7. Unholstered firearms on the public entity or accredited non-public school property. That's a, can you explain that? And I have a couple other follow-ups too.
Representative Tarwater.
Sure. This software would be able to be in any public school or accredited school.
Representative Rogers.
Okay, thank you. Any credits? Okay. Okay, now, maybe there's silent conversations on this, but is this simply all going to schools or hospitals, courthouses? What, and is it going to be, how would it be distributed as far as, you know, $7 million could go, you know, how far is it going to go west, I guess is what I'm asking.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the question. Yeah, so this would be for prioritized schools, and then it would also be for public areas and other public buildings. And that's why it's front-loaded at $7 million in '25 and $7 million in '26, so that we can get it out there quicker.
Representative Rogers.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So it's software, so does it work on say a computer already that the school or public entity has, or how is this, I mean, I can see that $7 million go a long ways if it's a software program, but how, is there a central, I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but it's $7 million. We cut a lot of money today, and I just want to kind of understand how the thing works.
Representative Tarwater.
So it's it's more than software. The AI software picks up the weapon as soon as it's brandished, and it's picked up through the school's cameras or cameras that are provided by a company. It is immediately sent to a call center that verifies that it is actually a firearm before they scramble the police. And then the police are once it's verified, the police are immediately notified, and they're on the way to the school before the first shot is fired.
Representative Rogers.
Okay. I'm not trying to downplay this, but if some of these buildings, you know, something could happen, and if, like in one of my schools, I'm 10 miles away from law enforcement, they get there in 15 minutes, and that I mean, I'm just, I want to bring a realistic look to this. I mean, it's fine. I'm just trying to make sure, again, of all the cuts we've made today that, and not that this isn't important in light of everything else that's gone on, I'm just wanted to learn some more, and I'd just soon know now instead of waiting until after we pass it and then do then get deep into it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the maker of the motion, FY25 here, you're adding 7 million SGF, so are you deleting this from the Department of Education's budget? Or are you just adding a new program in the AG's office?
Representative Tarwater.
I'm moving it, in a sense, and making it so that they don't have to pay 50%.
Representative Ousley.
It's my understanding that FY25 grants have already been distributed. There's nothing there to transfer.
Representative Tarwater.
Yes, sir. I'm removing 2026 and using that to pay for part of this program.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Ousley.
Thank you. So we're moving away from safe and secure schools to increase door security, window security, school resource officers, acquisition of naloxone, purchase and maintenance of AEDs. We're deleting that program altogether, hence going forward.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. That was already done in the language that I'm deleting. The current language in 2026 allows for this RFP, but it's since it's under safe and secure schools language, it calls for a 50-50 match, and I'm using that to pay for this program and make it so that it's more affordable for schools, so more of them will participate.
Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The language I have that House Appropriations adopted 2325 still allowed for the acquisition of AEDs. So I'm just curious. And I'd like to thank you for providing it in writing. It is helpful to be able to see what we're voting on.
All right, so.
Representative Ballard.
I think my question was asked.
All right.
I think I like the women. Would you expand on that a little bit more, just to make sure what he was asking? I wasn't sure about it either. So we're going to take it totally from the schools and do an RFP, and it'll handle all 286 school districts.
Representative Tarwater.
Okay, thanks and for the opportunity to clarify. Line 7 on page 16 of 25 on the Manila form here, we had added language already for the RFP process for this program. And the money was $5 million. I'm deleting the language and lapsing the fund and using that $5 million to partially offset some of the expenses for this program. That is a better program, and it is intended to I don't know if every single school district will want to participate, but as many that can under the 14 million that this program is kind of front-loaded for 2025 and 2026. I would imagine we can get to quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Representative Ballard.
Okay, so that says that if there are school districts that choose not to, they can have their own people do it the way they were going to do it prior to this.
They can do whatever they like. But the Safe and Secure Fund is deleted. If they want to use their own money to do something different, they certainly can. They always could.
Representative Ballard.
All right, but that says they're not going to have the funding. They'll have to choose otherwise. So in a way, they're almost forced to use this program.
Representative Tarwater.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to clarify once again, but we were already forcing them to use this program with this language. And I'm just making it better.
Representative Ballard.
I'm okay with it. I'm not sure I like it, but I understand better. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question, but I also a comment, just a reminder to the committee that the $5 million that we appropriated last year for the Safe and Secure, the proviso language that dictated how that money should be used, it wasn't actually zeroized as it states in here. I think that's just a typo. It did not specify, but that language was deleted or vetoed by our governor. Therefore, there was no way to know how those funds were to be used because we have never had this in statute. We started this in 2017, but it's always been proviso language. So every year that we've appropriated the money, we have specified through proviso language how they use it. Unfortunately, last year, the governor deleted the proviso language and the Attorney General said unlawfully, and kept the money. Therefore, it shouldn't be appropriate, still should be available for use because there's no way to spend the money without dictating it. So I just wanted to note that. So it's only a $2 million increase, and what we're doing is I believe, implementing a universal, a global safety solution. But I do have a question for you, Representative Tarwater. Sometimes RFPs can be delayed. They can take a long time. Do you have a release date in mind for the RFP?
Representative Tarwater.
I don't have a release date. That would be up to the AG's office.
Representative Williams.
That's right. I just was reminded that's in the AG's office. Thank you.
Representative Estes.
I have a question for our friends at Research. We've heard two different statements. One was that the 2025 money is all been distributed, and another that says because of the veto it wasn't. Could we please clarify what has and hasn't happened?
Dylan.
So, Mr. Chairman, when we've had our conversations with KSD, they have indicated that it has been spent, but I will go and check the accounting system.
Representative Estes.
I'm sorry, there was a noise and I didn't get to hear you. I apologize.
It was spent. It's been spent.
So then there is no money to carry forward.
He's going to check, but that would be the indication, yes.
Okay, and may I ask Representative Tarwater a question?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this deletes the 5. It's not an enhancement onto the 5.
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the question. Your first concern, we do realize the 2025 has probably already been spent, and this in no way affects that. What I am talking about, the funds I'm talking about are in the 2026 budget. And this is an enhancement because it adds $2 million to it in 25 and 26.
Representative Estes.
It's a $20 million, sorry, sir.
Thank you. I struggle with this one. I see the value in this, but I also think that I would like the department to have flexibility in how they spend. But I guess if this goes to the AG's office, that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would probably counter that with saying that the flexibility, that's swell, but we're talking about safe and secure schools, and it's being spent on AEDs. That's not safe and secure. All right, that's helpful. We need that equipment. I'm not doubting that. But that's not what we designed this funding for. This was designed to increase the safety and the security of our schools. So I think maybe limiting the flexibility a little bit maybe isn't entirely out of line. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Helgerson.
So the proposal is that the money would go to the general. They will go through the Department of Administration in a competitive grant, and then the grants will be awarded through our normal bidding process. Is there any staffing necessary at the AG's office to monitor, to write, or to check up on the grants?
Representative Tarwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for the question. I can't answer that. I don't know what it would take.
Okay.
Representative Helgerson.
And I'm not trying to scuttle the proposal. I'm just saying if the money goes in and if it's proposed, we should check with the AG's office, and hopefully they have enough staff to do whatever necessary without additional FTE.
Representative Ousley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to make a substitute motion that we take this $7 million, if we're going to take it out of the KSDE budget, and we're not going to give them the flexibility to have safe and secure schools the way that they have come to us and asked for, to delete this $7 million SGF going to the AG's office and put it towards special education.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Helgerson. Discussion on the substitute motion. Seeing none, you may close on your substitute motion.
I'll go back to the emails we received. Over 400 emails, people asking us to, at very least, hold the $30 million line on the special education funding. When our committee, when my chair's committee, when the K-12 committee got together, we discussed, you know, the safe and secure school grants. We came up with proviso language that passed out unanimously. We had the funding in there. We listened to the school districts and what they had to say. We discussed taking out the acquisition of naloxone, and that was decided to leave it in there. Nobody has come to us and asked us for this program. This program seems to be pushed by the legislature. I've not heard a request in any of my education discussions here. However, overwhelming pleas to fund special education. So I think if we're going to take money out of the Department of Education, well, I don't think we should. I think we should leave it in and put it towards special education, and I'll close on my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the substitute motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. Motion fails. We're back on the original motion. Any further discussion on the original motion? Seeing none, Representative Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've decided that based on the discussion on the previous motion that I'm not going to be supportive of this. Currently, we have, just for this calendar year, the rest of this calendar year, $16 million in new contracts for supposed safe and secure schools. It's going to be administered not through the Department of Education. And it just really makes me sad that, and as probably most of you know, gun violence prevention is my key issue, my main why for running for office. And it just makes me sad that we're failing to a point of allowing so much gun violence to occur. But I still think that the better investment here is in special education in our school budget. And so that's why I'm going to be opposing this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, now seeing none. Representative Tarwater, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would remind the committee that this is not really an either-or thing. This is a important thing. I mean, we're not talking about funding one thing over another. We're funding both at this point. As Representative Williams said earlier, I was on the K-12 Budget Committee when we created this fund, and we created this fund with the sole intent of hardening the target of our schools. It was in reaction to several school shootings the year before that were just complete massacres. And we wanted to make sure that didn't happen in the state of Kansas. And that's why we put this fund forward. The fund had so much demand that they ended up having a 50-50 match, and some schools were left out. The intent of this motion is to make it so that all schools can participate, and it's front-loaded, like we talked about, so that they can, and they can get started quickly. Not on my watch. I just can't sit here and not do anything, and in 5 or 6 years have something happen in the state of Kansas knowing that I could have made a difference. And that's why I'm bringing this today. Just think on the Kansas City Chiefs parade, if you remember that. There were several reports of guns being seen before shots were fired by 15, 20 minutes, actually. Individuals reported seeing that. Had there been one of these cameras in that area, the police would have been notified that there were weapons being brandished, and that tragedy could have been avoided. And that's why I'm bringing this. With that, I close. Thank you.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Okay, it's nearing 7 o'clock. I have a quick question right now. How many more of you have amendments? So we got 4 individuals. You have 3. Okay, the reason why I ask that, because if we break right, and I have a technical that I'll do at the very end, which I always do when we put in the budget. But I just want to make sure that we're able to get it through our allotted time tomorrow from 9 to 11. You want to keep going? All right, well, we can keep going, but I just want to make sure that, that's all right. All right. Representative Hoy, I think you had your hand up on amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get my stuff pulled up here. First, I would have you turn to the Larned Hospital Facility. No, it's not going to be in this, but I'm not sure which page the budget is on. Sorry, I didn't have it ready to go, but my motion would be for Larned State Hospital, $275,000 SGF in fiscal year 2025 and $75,000 SGF for 2026 for the fire services contract with the city of Larned.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second. Second by Representative Ballard. Discussion on the motion. See none, which when we had a discussion about this when the budget came out, but Representative Hoy, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, we did discuss in our Transportation and Public Safety Budget Committee because there were some questions about the contract, and I have since seen a copy of this, and the state is contracting with the city of Larned as of July 1st, 2024, and that contract goes through 2029. So our last budget that would be for fiscal year 2028. And the first year is the $275,000. It's additional to start the contract, just based on the different types of training for these particular facilities. There used to be a small brigade at Larned, but that is no longer feasible, so that is why we need this contract. I think it's important to have this as a line item, and I would like to just thank the individuals taking this on with the city and providing these services.
So you close?
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The noes appear to have it. Noes do have it. Motion fails. Division has been called. All those in favor say, or raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion fails on a vote from 7 to 10. Did you have another motion?
Yes, I would like to, I'm sorry, I've got to pull up, I have these written down in a document, and there we go. We had discussed this item in the Adjutant General's budget on emergency management performance grants, and I had spoken in favor of keeping those in there, and have since realized that taking this out could actually put positions at risk. And I think that just even given these snowstorms this year, fires, tornadoes, flooding, emergency preparedness is just not an area that we want to risk these cuts. I also mentioned that the local emergency management departments, they do put in matching funds as well. So I would like to make a motion to add $400,000 SGF fiscal year 2025 and $500,000 SGF fiscal year 2026 for emergency management performance grants for Kansas Department of Emergency Management in the Adjutant General's budget.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Ballard. Discussion on the motion. Seeing no discussion, Representative Hoy, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The noes appear to have it. The noes do have it. Motion fails. Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given fire services and emergency management were unsuccessful, I'm going to guess that my others are not, and those would have been my priorities. I do believe that it was short-sighted to not provide those enhancements, but I appreciate the opportunity to bring those before you all tonight. Thank you.
Representative Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will do 2 in 1. My motion is in reference to Kansas State Department of Education. I move to add language to the Kansas State Department of Education's budget to allow the agency to expend up to $320,000 from within existing state general fund appropriations for the purpose of funding the Youth Career Discovery Program in 2026, and also $1.3 million for the Spark Wheel expansion fiscal year 26. And just to repeat that language, this is not new spending. This is an agreement we reached with the agency to fund these 2 programs, one by Representative Rogers and one proposed by me. And the Spark Wheel, if you have questions on it, we have handouts that we can get each of you on the expanding the Spark Wheel services to 10 different school districts. That is my motion.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? All right, seconded by Representative Ousley. Discussion on the motion. And I think there's some handouts to be passed out.
I already got one. Thank you.
Okay, since that has been handed out, is there any questions or discussion in regards to the motion? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so clarify again, this is using existing KSDE funds?
Representative Getz.
Yes, there was 2 options given that we could either use it out of a program that I think you were part of starting, the virtual math education program, and that had a $2 million appropriation, and they had spent about $900,000. And so then with Rogers and Spark Wheel, we went with option number 2 to allow the language to be just within existing state general fund appropriations. So it is district money, in a sense, not agency money.
Representative Williams.
So we wanted the math improvement plan, the virtual math improvement plan, and they have been sitting on $1.1 million.
Representative Getz.
That is what was told to me, but that they're continuing to expand it, and so I just didn't want to dip all the way through that. We could do one of them through it, but there's going to have to be another way for the other one, so that's why I just put them both over in existing general funds to where that program wouldn't be damaged.
Representative Williams.
Well, I mean, that's interesting to know that they didn't use the money the way that we wanted to use the money, but that's a side note. I would also say that they're going to have in 2026 an additional $160,000 in their budget because of 2 FTEs that they are no longer going to need that we use for safe and secure. So there will be additional funds, and I look forward to it, and I think this is fine. I have no problem with it. I will look forward to looking a little closer at these budgets at a later date.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Getz, you may close.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Getz.
Okay, this one, if you would turn in your packets to page 10, line 17, it has to do with the, we had the discussion around Hazel Health, mental health services, and how there was not an RFP process. My motion is going to make an attempt to put some clarity around that. So on page 10, line 17, if you look at the language of add 2 million SGF and delete 2 million SGF from the mental health intervention, basically the MHIT program, and add language directing the agency to expend funds to telehealth services, my motion would be to keep the numbers the same, the 2 million add, 2 million delete, but to add language directing the agency. We were thinking about KSDE, but we want to do KHDE, KDHE, sorry, I always get that, I always say it wrong, to expend the funds by the request for proposal process. And they shall establish a school-based telehealth pilot program with 3 caveats. Who has 50,000 experience in scale and serving clients, with outcomes from a Research One university, and who waives out-of-pocket costs and covers uninsured costs.
And I would say that probably belongs in KDADS instead of KDHE.
Is that what we want? Okay, I apologize.
And then seconded by Representative Ousley. Discussion on the motion. Representative Sutton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Didn't we just do this?
It's just proviso language that we do an RFP.
I believe that we did that the other day, didn't we?
Representative Williams?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, if you recall, we set the RFP process, but we didn't put any stipulations on what that RFP might entail. That's one thing that Representative Getz is adding. The second thing that he's adding is I had moved it into the State Board of Education, and so Representative Getz did some communications, and they don't really have anything, they don't want to have anything to do with it per se, and so the rest of the program is in KDAD, so this seemed like, let's just put it back all together, make a whole.
Representative Sutton?
So if none of us want to have anything to do with it, we can just vote this down, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, Representative Getz, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I encourage your support. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Is that all you had, or you have one more?
I just have a research question or a reviser's question around our current special education language that I want to make sure, because I've talked to the vice chair, that it is, we want it to be, in a sense, the same as last year in the excess cost model by the state school board. And I want to make sure what's in my packet that it reads that way and there's not discrepancy, and any clarity she wants to provide or the risers want to provide to that the language currently in 2007 that has been amended to that is equal to what we had in House Bill's substitute for Senate Bill 387 regarding excess cost.
Vice Chair Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if there's anything that needs to be adjusted that we certainly can do so. But looking back at House Substitute for Senate Bill 387, we actually already established that any monies above $528 million would be appropriated in the manner in which the State Board of Education does so based on the excess cost per school district. So that part is okay. The only thing that we changed, and Jill can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we added the one little piece. It's not just excess cost, but it's the percentage excess cost. That's more of a reporting. It doesn't change anything relating to distribution. It's more of the reporting aspect. So that's the only thing that I would have added. In my proviso, I think I did reiterate what was already in statute, and I don't know that that's necessary.
Representative Getz?
That suffices for me. I just wanted clarity around that. I appreciate it.
Representative Howell?
So I appreciate the previous question. It's something I was curious about. So does this proviso language require a new formula compared to SB 387? Because
Representative Williams?
So, no, it is exactly identical to House Substitute for 387. And so if you recall, the equalization formula or the excess costs formula for special education, it's quite lengthy, and we maintain that for the first $528 million. For any increase, what we did is say for those increased dollars, we give those dollars to the State Board of Education to distribute using an equalization formula in which they determine, but they must give consideration to the inequities or the disparity between school districts that have higher excess cost percentages. So for example, some might have a 67% excess cost and another district might have a 210% excess cost. So they're supposed to use that increases to making consideration. So they're not supposed to completely ignore it. They're supposed to kind of bring people closer together.
Representative Howell?
I appreciate the explanation, but as I understand it, the excess cost isn't supposed to be attributed by district. It's a statewide type of funding, 92% of excess cost. So what does this achieve, and what benefit by adding this language can I tell my constituents?
Representative Williams?
Sure. I don't know that I can give you the proper primer in a few minutes, but it is something that we worked excessively hard on last year, and it actually is in statute. So they are required to provide the excess cost numbers to districts, and it's actually, I pulled Senate Bill 387, and so it does require them right now. They are also required to provide that to us, the legislature. So it is, in fact, an entirety of excess costs at 92%. We did not change that, but it also is relevant at the district level. Just in quick summary why that matters is because, for example, if you have 100 students that are special education students, that value that monetary amount that they're going to receive for that number of students is going to be different from a rural school to a highly populated school. And the biggest difference in payment is actually high enrollment and low enrollment. If you are a low enrollment school, then you're going to get double the amount of money for those students than you will at high enrollment. So they are already going to be paid more for that population just because they're a low enrollment district. Therefore, their excess cost is going to be it's going to be higher. They're going to have more money just front end than another district like Wichita. So there is a difference in how the money is distributed, and it does impact the formula. And so we are making it parallel. If it's true for 286 districts, it's also true for one.
Representative Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I know there's differences because of the weightings, as I understand it. So a rural district, maybe a lower student headcount, would be weighted differently than an urban school with a lot of students. So that's already in the school finance formula, as I understand it. So this equalization, I'm having trouble trying to understand what it does, but we can talk certainly offline about that. So I'm just trying to be able to provide my constituents when they contact me, with an answer, because people are concerned that perhaps we're trying to change the way special education funding is attributed, perhaps in some way. So, thank you.
All right. Representative Williams.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Just, you can look on Senate Bill 387, page 12, and 13, 14, and 15, and I think you'll be able to review that and help your constituents because it was passed last year.
Representative Getz.
The clarity that I have around this, Representative, is in our current statute, when we figure local excess cost, it doesn't get us to a percentage, and we would like it to where it comes down to total cost of special education and total funds attributable to special education. What we want the last column to read is, what is that percentage based on an excess cost mindset? To where I did it for Dodge City, it was about 11 million that was total cost. It was 9 million that were funds attributable from the state. So the locals came in and had that other, and so we were at 81% excess cost. All we want to tell the statute to do so that KSD can add it to the reporting column of add the percentage. They have all the other calculations already in there. This just adds a percentage to the last column to where it shows, and right now it doesn't. So we're asking for that.
Representative Howe.
Thank you. So just to understand, no one's saying that a district is overfunded in special education.
I don't believe so, no. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we are saying are some districts, because of the calculation, they are receiving a greater amount than other districts. So some districts are receiving less percentage-wise than others if you follow the formula out.
Representative Howe.
I've taken a lot of time, committee. I appreciate your indulgence, but isn't special education based on need? And so that's why there's going to be a little bit of a disparity based on the formula?
Representative Getz or Williams?
Sure. I think we could definitely take this offline. I think it takes a lot of time. I think I spent years trying to wrap my arms around it. But I will say it's not really based on need purely. It's based on teacher entitlement. It's based on transportation. It's based on Medicaid. So there are some variables in there. Teacher entitlement is the number one thing that influences how much you receive. And I guess you could say, well, if you're hiring more teachers, then you have a greater number of need. There are other things that factor in, for example, those students that have really high level need, and that's another whole discussion as well.
Representative Curtis. No, we're moving on. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So I have a proviso that I would like to offer in the Department of Commerce concerning the Kansas Creative Arts Industry. Yes, and so there's language that could be passed out. Do you want me to just go ahead or you want me to wait?
Go ahead and describe your amendment while you hand it out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my proviso would provide that expenditures shall be made by the above agencies from such account for fiscal year 26 to employ persons on a contractual basis in order to ensure that the maximum amount of dollars may be distributed to Kansas communities for the arts grants. It doesn't change the bottom line of the amount that's been appropriated. It simply says that the money that was used to hire contractual employees would be added then to make more dollars available to go out to our Kansas arts communities. I just want to make sure that we're getting the maximum amount possible out to our communities to fund arts grants and programs. So I'm happy to stand for questions.
Committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Hoffman. Discussion on the motion. All right, seeing none, Representative Curtis, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Representative Curtis, was that the only one? Right. Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two, and I think one of them may have already been done, and we'll get to with that one here in a second. But the first thing I want to look at is on page, well, while we're following along in this color sheet, page 13, line item number 10. We're in the KDHE health section here. As you'll recall, anytime we touch prior authorization, the hackles are going to rise just a little bit. Now, I'm not wanting to get away or do away with number 10, but I do want to put some guardrails on this. With regard to number 10, where we've done away with the prior authorization for services and repair and preventative maintenance on complex wheelchairs, what I'd like to put in as a proviso is that the Medicaid insurance, Inspector General, Medicaid Inspector General will audit the expenditures in that particular category at the end of the year to see what the delta is from flatline to removal of the prior authorization. Just a report back to the legislature.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion, seconded by Representative Tarwater. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Representative Sutton, you may close.
Well, I will close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Representative Sutton.
Keep that in mind. All right, no, actually, this next one I think is already done. My original intent was to transfer the money from the University of Kansas Medical Center adjustments, the specialty medical loan program, $2.4 million, to Emporia State University that we had already allocated funding from SGF for their legal obligations. But with Chairman Howe's motion, I think we've already swept that, and since we've already allocated the SGF funds to ESU, this may already be done. I just want to double check and make sure that that is indeed correct.
We're having, Jill's looking at it right now.
Yes, it's 2.4 to 2.2, but you know, we're amongst friends.
Is that what we're talking about? A couple $200,000.
What's two? I'll put the other 200,000 in. You know.
Yes, you're talking about the only thing that was in Chairman Howe's original motion was the 2.4 under the specialty medical loan program.
Correct. He swept that out.
Yes.
And now we had already, however, budgeted, and I think that was in, just a minute, I'll find it for you. On page
ESU
17.
legal fees was already budgeted.
That was already budgeted. So in sweeping that, I think we've already satisfied what I was wanting to achieve there. I just wanted to make sure that that was indeed the fact.
Yes, I think, yes.
Very good. Then I have no further recommendations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion? Representative Howe.
Just maybe a technical question, I guess, for the committee. So in my adjustment package, it talked about K-State 105 and using state general fund, but in the original, I guess, our cream-colored document, it talks about K-State 105 with EDIF. And so I want to make sure we're not double funding.
Was your initial intent state general fund or ED? Because we don't have the balance in EDIF for 3.5 million.
Okay.
It shouldn't be.
I just didn't know if we needed to strike maybe what's on the cream sheet, if we're going to use state general fund dollars, just so it's not doubled up somewhere.
Right. I guess I will stand corrected. Dylan is saying it is an EDIF right now. So if your language said EDIF and then the substitute, I think, had it increased,
Yeah, 500,000.
500,000?
The decrease.
You
we
didn't
changed
change
it
the
to 500.
funding source.
No, I didn't.
So what you submitted would be correct.
Well, I believe my,
Or did
my,
you
my sheet says actually SGF on it. And so I
Right.
apologize
Well,
for not
and
reconciling that.
yeah, I'll have the final technical amendment that if the funding is EDIF, and we can specify that in there as well with the funding sources. Did you have anything else, Representative Howe? That's it? Any further discussion? Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Flipping to page 3, under bids, the reappropriation lapse for FY 2025. We had discussion in my committee and we had discussion in here on it, so we'll give it one more stab. The majority of these funds are just going to be reappropriated. Like we talked about before, bids has 31 funded vacant positions. They are not able to fill these only partially until September. So for this money being in FY 25, it will just be reappropriated. So I would move to remove $3 million from number 1 on bids for FY 25.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by Representative Francis. Discussion on the motion. Representative Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do think that these funds are extremely important for bids to be able to provide services. This is a constitutional service that we have to provide for people to have representation. And I also would wonder, because we did do the global sweep of FTE funding. I guess I don't know how that could impact the 31 positions, and some of those, I think 18 of them will be filled through, I think someone mentioned when the bar exam occurs. Some of those are just students waiting to come aboard. So I think that this 3.9 million is very bare bones for bids and what they need to be able to accomplish their goals. So I would not support this motion.
All right, committee, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Representative Anderson, you may close.
Thank you, Chairman. I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Motion passes. All right, any further discussion? Okay, since that, I do not see any hands going up. I am going to make my usual technical amendment. So this motion would allow for staff research and the revisers to make any adjustments or technical changes within the bill. So I think that addresses your concern, Representative Howe, in regards to the funding, in regards to EDIF. In addition to that motion, there's going to be some cleanup language also. So in the budget, whenever there is something that's mentioning moving expenses for either 25 or 26, because we were anticipating I will say Dole building, because that's what I called it this morning, it was to be completed in 2025, but that's not going to happen until probably fiscal year 2026. Moving all the dollars associated with moving expenses for the agencies that might be moving around within the Capitol complex, to have that moved to the State Finance Council, and the State Finance Council will then administer those funds once those agencies are able to move into those buildings. The next was in regards to debt. There were 3 bonding payments that we need to streamline, where it actually is made by the Department of Administration, where I think in last year's bill, we had it specifically with the KBI, KSU Salina, and the Topeka Correctional Facility. So to just streamline that to where it's through the Department of Administration, since they actually go out and get the bonds, they need to make the bond payment. The final, I think, adjustment that I need to make, and like I said, if we do happen to miss anything, we will have a trailer bill in a couple weeks that we'll be working on to just try to wrap things up. The next would be the star bonds language, Jill, that we've had for the last couple of years in regards to Mattel. Because that project hasn't started, we probably need to have that same language that was in the budget bill last year for fiscal year 2027, because they'll probably still be in construction in regards to that. And if it doesn't say 26, we need 26 and 27, but I think it says 26. So we just need to extend that one more year. Yes, it does include special revenue funds. So that'd be the, I guess, global technical amendment. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair Williams. Discussion on the motion. Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That did include the Barbie reappropriation?
Yes, it did.
All right, just
Well,
checking.
not
Wanted to make
reappropriation,
sure.
but there was no Barbie reappropriation. Representative Howe.
Mr. Chair, may I approach the chair? I overlooked something, but I need to talk to you first before we adjourn here.
Okay. Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back when we were doing water, there were questions about what has been accomplished in the process. I believe Representative Sutton and Representative Helgerson were asking. So I spoke with the water office, and they, if staff could hand these out, they have a document that shows exactly where the water dollars have gone and what's been accomplished. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you for providing that. So we're on the motion. Are there any questions in regard to my global motion for just technical fixes? Seeing none, I close on my motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, and then, yeah, there is a big one that we omitted. So I will, since we'll be wrapping up, I'll turn it back over to Chairman Howe. Chairman Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this could have been a really big oversight on my part, but with everything going on today, it just, it's my bad. So I believe staff has a double-sided sheet about the university bonding requests, not currently in HB 2007. The Higher Education Budget Committee held a hearing, informational hearing last week, where universities, Wichita State University, University of Kansas, and Kansas State University all have bonding authority requests that weren't in the budget bill. So I can go over each one and would be glad to stand for questions after that.
All right. Do you make your formal motion? Sorry, I was reading through the paperwork.
I don't know if I was prepared to make a motion, to be quite honest, because
You
I
just
think
wanted to have this passed out for the committee?
the committee, due to time constraints, was only able to have the informational hearing. We weren't able to make a recommendation back to this committee, just due to time constraints in the allotted time we had.
Well, and I would just say, after the point, if we pass this bill out tonight, and we debate it on the House floor next week, after turnaround, your committee could have a more in-depth conversation in regards to bonding. And again, like I said, the anticipation is to have a trailer bill, and then have that, and that could be added at that time, or whatever your committee decides, if that is sufficient.
That would be sufficient, I think. I mean, these are some pretty big dollar amounts. You know, one is a refinance, so there could be some savings there. But, you know, it's a lot of bonding authority, and I think it's something that perhaps a trailer bill might be more appropriate to where you guys have time to digest this, and maybe my committee can actually make some recommendations based off of the testimony we heard about.
And just for the members of the committee, we'll be having hearings after turnaround and bill hearings. So this could be something that we could have here as well in regards to the bonding. And you can have it in your committee and we can have it here as well. Representative Howe.
Yeah, and that was one of the challenges. Every year I've been chair, we've had a presentation by the Kansas Finance, or KDFA, Kansas Development Finance Authority. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make it to our meeting. We had just had some analyst from Moody's in the state doing some work at KU in Wichita State, and they were on the plane that went to Washington, D.C., and, unfortunately lost their lives. And so prayers go out to them and their families in that tragedy. But, yeah, we would love to definitely have KDFA come back and do a little bit more of a formal presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, Vice Chair Williams.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the contents of House Bill 2007 be placed into House substitute for House Bill 2007, and that House substitute for House Bill 2007 be moved favorably for passage.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Francis. Any discussion? Seeing none, Representative Williams, you may close on the motion.
I close.
All right, committee, you've heard the motion to pass out House substitute for House Bill 2007 favorably for passage. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. That is the budget bill. So we have wrapped it up tonight, so we will not have committee tomorrow morning. But please show up to calendar at 8 a.m. because I'll be going through the budget. So until Monday, we don't have a, there's a meeting on call of the chair. So, hey, we're probably not going to have a meeting scheduled all next week. So until after turnaround will be the next time we meet. So we're adjourned.